It's podcast time, May 21st, 2013. Let's get right to it. Everybody at Solid Signal knows that I'm the good guy, I'm the nice guy, I'm the guy who tries not to say anything bad about anybody. But when I do get upset, watch out. And I'm a little upset at my fellow bloggers for something that happened this weekend. It started on Friday, and then it went all the way through the midday Saturday, and I got dozens of tips on this. Now, I'd like to say, first of all, thank you for everybody who tipped me on this. Thanks for everybody who brought it up to me and thought that it would be a good blog article to write. I really appreciate you guys, and let me say I'm in no way angry at you at all. On Friday night, WallStreetJournal.com ran a story that said DirecTV is considering buying Hulu, according to an unnamed source familiar with the matter. Well, by noon on Saturday, not only had this turned into DirecTV is definitely buying Hulu, not only had it turned into a bunch of people saying how excited that they were going to be when DirecTV gave Hulu away for free to all of its existing customers, but the story had been picked up by a lot of so-called reputable websites. I'm talking about Variety.com, HollywoodReporter.com. These are guys with a lot better subscription bases than I have. I'll be honest with you on that. Here's the problem. There's no story. Wall Street Journal said they talked to somebody who didn't really want to give a name, who claimed to be familiar with the situation, saying DirecTV was thinking about doing something. Other sites like Hollywood Reporter followed up by saying, hey, we tried to confirm the story and nobody returned our call. Folks, this is not a story. A story is things like, this actually happened. This is going to actually happen. A person went on record as saying this happened. Hey, I'm just one guy, and I've got a readership of about 300,000 per year, which is great, but it's maybe a tenth or 100th of what some of these other blogs have. And even I know that a story needs facts. Oh, it's fun to speculate, and I'd love to see DirecTV buy Hulu. I honestly don't think it's going to happen, and I'll explain why in just a minute. But I'd love to see DirecTV buy Hulu. Why not? But just saying I'd like it to happen, that's not a story. Just saying somebody's told me that DirecTV might be thinking about it, that's not a story. What is a story? A story, like I said, is facts. And here's a fact. DirecTV employs thousands of people in its broadcast facilities and engineering facilities who are involved in coming up with their own software and hardware solutions for on-demand and streaming playback. They're not going to walk away from something like that. DirecTV has huge facilities for this sort of thing, and they take pride in the fact that they're doing it all themselves, that they don't just go out and buy other companies. Does this mean this story is absolutely untrue? Of course not. Does it mean DirecTV could never buy Hulu? Of course not. It would just signal a very large change in the way they do business. Companies like the Wall Street Journal and the Hollywood Reporter, they know about their fields, and trust me, I know about this one. It just seems like it's very unlikely. And I'll tell you a bit more that's also very unlikely is the idea that somehow Hulu would become a free service for DirecTV subscribers. If DirecTV doesn't charge a line item for a combined DirecTV Hulu, even assuming there is such a thing, then it would just be hidden somewhere else in your charges. DirecTV is a business, and they're not in business to give things away. They're in business to make money. And if Hulu is already sustaining a subscriber base now, there's no reason to think DirecTV would throw that away just so they'd have something nice to give to their customers. Now you see there what I just said? Even that isn't a news story. That's an editorial. That's me giving my opinion, and I completely admit that it's just my opinion. I consider it to be pretty informed given the amount of time that I spend with folks who really know what they're talking about. But it's an opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion on the subject, and in this, your opinion would be just as valid as those of the Wall Street Journal, Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Mashable, and other reputable sites that have reported on this. So, dear listeners, I challenge you to demand more. Now, some of you might not be old enough to remember there was a time when newspapers and magazines employed fact checkers, folks whose job it was to just make sure that the reporters were actually telling the truth, and to label things as opinion when they actually were. The internet is arguably the single most important invention in the history of mankind. The amount of information that you have available at your fingertips when standing in the middle of the road is 1,000,000 times more than your average university library had just 25 years ago. But how much of it is wrong? Folks, demand more from your reporting. I intend to give you more, and I hope that you'll take me to task when I don't, because I'm going to mess up sometimes. I guarantee it. But don't just demand more from me, and don't just leave angry comments. Demand more from all the sites that you read. Demand real facts, real follow-up, real fact-checking, and when things are just an opinion, make sure they're clearly labeled. As far as Dish and Hulu, who knows? DirecTV probably is considering buying them. Hulu's up for sale and probably 100 companies are considering buying them. So again, it's not really news. But I think you'll agree that I'm just sort of turning this whole story around and around, and I've gone over my 5-minute budget. I thank you for being patient with me, and so I'll sign off quickly, saying if you have any ideas for a future podcast, push that button at the Solid Signal blog that I keep telling you about called Suggest a Topic. And until then, have a great week. I'll try to be a little less cranky next time.